before.
Hello. Can you hear me? Can't hear you guys.
It's because we're muted.
Ah, right. Okay. Okay. Should I? And I'm sharing my screen.
Yeah, yeah.
Okie dokie.
What's the boardroom look like? Let's just change that. Morning, everybody who's starting to join. So we've got a couple of minutes until the webinar starts. So we'll keep you posted on that. Looking for a 10 o'clock start. So we'll just let the numbers roll in, get people joining, and then we'll start quite prompt. Morning, everyone. Just waiting for some more people to join. You're all starting to flood in. We'll probably start just a couple of minutes after 10, just allow people to get logged in. Morning, everybody. Yeah, I think you're all starting to join now, so we'll just give it maybe just a couple of minutes, and then we'll get started.
Damien, can you just confirm you can see the slides? Okay.
Yeah, all good. All good.
Yeah.
We've still got some people joining, so just give it one more minute, and then we'll get it underway. Okay, let's kick it off. So, good morning, everybody. Obviously, welcome to our webinar, Cyber Essentials 2025 update, hosted by us, Protos Networks. So I'm Damien. I'm going to be your host for today's session. So I can see you're all still flying in. We've got a lot of attendees today, a lot of industries, different IT professions, compliance leads I can see joining it, and obviously decision makers. So from all of us, just thank you for taking the time to actually to join the webinar. Couple of house rules just before we start. Webinar's going to run for around about 60 minutes. That's going to include time for Q&As. Just on Q&As, you'll see there's a Q&A panel just to the right-hand side of the chat. So we would like it to be as interactive as possible. We've got a bit of content to get through, so I'll try and interrupt the guys and ask some questions. But obviously, we'll have that allotted time at the end, just from questions. This is a recorded session, so don't panic if you miss anything or you don't take any notes. We'll make sure we get this shared with everybody quite promptly after the meeting. So yeah, let's start. So, pleasure to introduce our speakers for today. So, firstly, we've got Darren Cooley, founder and technical director at Protos Networks, also our head of security services. Then we've got Gareth with me in the room here, who's our lead assessor, penetration tester, and kind of heads up our governance, risk, and compliance. So these two will be guiding you through today's agenda, which will be. Thank you, Daz. Oh, has that changed? Doesn't stuck on the home screen our side. Is it moving?
It should be.
Oh, yeah, there we go. Just put in the chat, everybody, if you can confirm that that's okay and you can see everything. So the agenda. So what is Cyber Essentials? We're going to kind of go through the technical controls and Cyber Essentials Plus. There's been a decade of Cyber Essentials as well. This is a report produced by the NCSC. So it's a decade-long review. So Darren will take you through that as well. We'll go through the all-important changes to the scheme that we've seen for 2025, some tips, recommendations, and then obviously we'll have that little break for Q&A as well. So before I hand over to the guys, I'll just do a little bit about Protos and who are we. So we're a managed networks and security provider based in Chester. We've kind of got three core services, you like, or three key parts to the business. We've got a 24/7 network operations center, 24/7 security operations center, just on the wall behind me. You can see the screens there on that picture. We're really focusing NDR, so full managed detection and response, and then our other services include the pen testing, information security governance, and certification services, which is obviously what we're all talking about today. So all our engineers, our assessors, our testers are all UK based from here. And we've actually been delivering Cyber Essentials since 2017. So, you know, we were probably one of the first partners to adopt it and do it on scale. And Darren and Gareth, in their time, you know, they've helped thousands of customers from a consultation point of view and getting them to Cyber Essentials and Cyber Essentials Plus. So that's enough waffling from me. I'll be in the background. I'll be managing the questions, so you fire them in. So I'll hand over to you, Darren. I'll let you take it away.
Thank you very much. Okay, let me just move. Okay, so a little bit about the scheme, then, just for those of you who you know may need a refresher on what the scheme is. So, Cyber Essentials, then, it's a government-backed scheme. It was launched in 2014, and it's overseen these days by the National Cyber Security Centre. And IASME is the sole, it says, accreditation body there. They're actually the delivery partner. A few years ago, there were 5 accreditation bodies, such as CREST, but IASME was awarded that. And there are over 200, there may even be more than that, certification bodies across the UK. Protos Networks is one of them. We're one of the largest, certainly in the north of England there. Cyber Essentials encourages organisations to adopt good practices in information and cybersecurity. And it's estimated when properly implemented, it can protect up to 80% of common internet-borne cyber attacks. It's also a good first step, for when Gareth and I or any of our consultants go in, organisations saying, where do I start? For example, I'm doing a seminar next Friday for a group of businesses here in North Wales. And, we'll be saying to them, where do I start this journey? And Cyber Essentials is often a good framework from where they can go and where they can build upon. The scheme has 2 levels. So Cyber Essentials self-certification, I think it's about 90 questions these days. So that goes through the standard, which we'll cover shortly. That's uploaded to a portal and then marked by, an assessor such as me or Gareth or David or Sophie or any of our other assessors. And then there's Cyber Essentials Plus, which is an audited version of that, which has to be completed within 90 days. Protos, the way we approach this is we take a very consultative approach to it. So we won't just give you the questions, set you up the portal and away you go. We make sure that we're guiding our clients through this, and we can never say a guaranteed pass. But we're going to consult with you to make sure that you are meeting those standards. So you shouldn't fail. When it comes to the audit or marking the assessment. Cyber Essentials is now required for many public sector contracts. It has been for many years now, and I imagine that's why a lot of you are on the call today. But we're seeing this more increasingly in the private sector. In supply chains and things like that, and more required by insurance companies as well to bring the premiums of your cyber insurance down. And it consists of 5 controls. So the five controls that we're looking at are boundary firewalls and firewalls at the edge between your internal networks and the internet. And that could be your physical firewalls, such as Cisco, Palo Alto, Fortinet, all that good stuff. But also firewalls on your computers and your machines and things like that, and more things like cloud firewalls. We look at the secure configuration of devices that are in scope, for example, not having, hardening those devices, making sure default passwords are changed, unnecessary software is removed, all of that good stuff. Access control then, guidance around passwords, passwordless, which we'll come to, is a new thing. And then multi-factor, which was brought in a couple of years ago in the last major change, multi-factor in cloud applications and things like that. Malware protection, making sure that your Windows, your Linux, your macOS devices are protected from malware with an anti-malware solution, and protecting your mobiles, preventing them being jailbroken and things like that. And patch and vulnerability management, as we'll get into, as we discuss the changes for this year. So the scope then, what's in scope? So the scope doesn't cover your users per se, but it does cover your laptops, servers, desktops, thin clients, all of that good stuff. Mobile devices as well, which are owned by the organisation. This is often overlooked, and Gareth will attest to this. We have assessed a lot of organisations that don't know what's on their mobiles, who's installing apps such as Office 365 and things like that. And that's where BYOD comes in. So, remote working devices, people VPN in from their machine or accessing your Microsoft 365 or your CRM system or whatever. If they're accessing company data, they need to fall into scope. Any routers or firewalls owned by your organisation need to come in scope. And then the last major changes to Cyber Essentials brought in all cloud services. So that includes software as a service, such as Microsoft 365 or HubSpot or stuff like that. Your infrastructure as a service, such as AWS or Microsoft Azure and stuff like that. And then platform as a service, if you're using that sort of stuff. So that's what the scopes cover. Then we have Cyber Essentials Plus. So Cyber Essentials Plus is the audited version of Cyber Essentials. And what that includes is, what it is it's carried out within 90 days of a successful site. Yes.
I'm really sorry to just put in there. We've just had a couple of people saying that the audio's not coming through quite right. I don't know if it's the headphones maybe, or I don't know if you can do it maybe without headphones or I don't just to double check.
One sec. Let me turn them off and just.
If that's okay, I just don't want anyone missing the content. That's all.
Yeah, no, 1 second.
Oh yeah, a lot of people are saying audio is fine as well, so it might just be that particular attendees.
Okay, so can you hear me a bit better now?
Oh yeah, that does seem clearer. Yeah.
Right. Okay, that's fine. Nice expensive headphones that don't work.
Cisco's finest.
Yeah. Yeah. So as I was saying about Cyber Essentials Plus, Cyber Essentials Plus is the audited version of Cyber Essentials, and what this is it has to be carried out within 90 days of a successful self-assessment, and carried out by an external certification body. By an assessor such as Gareth or myself. And a CE Plus audit includes the test that you can see there on the screen. So we'll begin with an external vulnerability assessment of your public IPs. Anything we find there, any vulnerabilities, will have to be fixed if they meet the threshold. But also, if we find an open web application, for example, and a login portal, there'll be a series of checks that we'll have to go through to make sure that it does meet the standard. We'll then do an authenticated internal vulnerability assessment. We use a cloud-based vulnerability scanner. We install it on your machines, on the sample size, run them, and then any vulnerabilities we find that don't meet the standards, you do have an opportunity to fix them during the assessment. If you can't fix them there and then, you have a period of time before you have to fix it. We'll check for the malware protection on all the end user devices, and we'll try and download malware, via the web. Make sure that it's blocked by either the browser or your EDR or your antivirus, whatever that might be. We'll also send malware in via email as well. We'll send the files in, make sure that your email filters there. Two of the newer checks you can see there, test 6 and 7 came in the last major round of changes. So we'll check multi-factor authentication, that it's enabled on all of your cloud apps. That should be the case going forward now. And then we'll check account separation. So one of the requirements is that users don't have local administrator rights to their machines, and we will check that is the case there. When we run a Cyber Essentials Plus assessment, then we have to take a sample of the machines and the builds that you have. So what you can see there is a sampling guide, and an example here of 15 Windows 10 Pro 22H2. And that's very important. That Windows version there, as you can see, 22H2 and 24H2, is very important when it comes to Cyber Essentials, because it could mean the difference between a small scope and less testing time, or an enormous scope and a lot of testing time, between us and you, and a lot of work then that comes off the back of it. So there you can see 50 Windows 10, 11 Pro, 1 Mac OS, 9 Android, and 15 iOS. And that would come out there as in the sampling size, 3 Windows 10 Pro, 22H2, 4, that should say Windows 11, 1 Mac OS Sequoia, from there. What you can see there, and what I'm going to labour throughout these slides, is getting a grip on your assets. Asset management isn't a requirement of Cyber Essentials, but it's certainly pushing you to have a grip on your assets and make sure things are a similar build. I've been with customers recently who said by next year we are going to get everything onto the same Windows 11 version, because it just the amount of time that it takes, and then the remediation can just become quite burdensome if you have a vast array of different, especially on Windows builds. So that's Cyber Essentials Plus then. The end of last year marked 10 years of Cyber Essentials, a decade of Cyber Essentials. We've been a CE and a CE Plus certification body for 7-8 years now. So, we were there in the early days of this. So the NCSC and the IASME actually launched a review of the scheme, but just to go over the journey then, for those of you who don't know. So the scheme was launched in June 2014. And then by 2019, over 15,000 Cyber Essentials certificates had been awarded. In the early days, it's very interesting that we mainly just did Cyber Essentials and not many CE Plus. And then about 2019, around the time 2018, 2019, GDPR and all that stuff came in, and then more and more organizations started requiring this, it completely flipped
to where we were doing CE+, but we were also doing CE and CE+ together and bundling that. And that to this day is still the vast majority of engagements that we go at. In 2020 then, the NCSC streamlined how it delivers the scheme and just chose IASME as its delivery partner. It was handy for us. We were already a member of the IASME consortium, which was very good. And then by 2022, 30,000 certificates were issued in that year, and the scheme celebrated its 100,000th certificate awarded since 2014. And I've got some stats shortly on that going on. We marked the NCSC and IASME marked a decade of Cyber Essentials last year with the launch of the Cyber Essentials Knowledge Hub. And if you haven't seen that, you just throw into Google Cyber Essentials Knowledge Hub. It's got a lot of help up there. Obviously, we help as well, but there's a lot of guidance on their terminologies and all that good stuff. Especially if this lands on the desk of someone non-technical and they just need a bit of guidance there on what the scheme is talking about. In the last year then, well, these stats were up until the 31st of August last year. There were 33,000, just over almost 34,000 Cyber Essentials certificates delivered, across the UK. Of them, nearly 11,000, and then 11,000 CE+ certificates, and this is a 20% increase on the year before. And you can see there by size of organisation, micro and small businesses make up the large majority there. Medium and large businesses, obviously the split of businesses in the UK is favoured towards smaller businesses, but the medium and large organisations go through this. It's worth saying that under review at the moment, because the scheme is often a bit more challenging for larger organisations because of the requirements. The NCSC and IASME are looking at a pathway where larger organisations, especially your larger corporate enterprises and things like that, have what they call a pathway, and that's a bit more around a penetration test, but that's still in review with the NCSC and IASME, and we will update everyone in due course on that. Some of the statistics from the past 10 years, though, very interesting. It's been identified that there's been 92% fewer cyber and data protection insurance claims made by organisations with Cyber Essentials, which is a really strong statistic there, in favour of the scheme. Almost 69% there of organisations believe Cyber Essentials has improved their competitiveness. And we recognise it. People like a badge. When we consult with our clients, it's like, what can we use as a framework? We could use things like NIST or the NCSC cyber framework, but they like Cyber Essentials because they get a badge. People seem to like a badge. Putting that, shows to you and your supply chain that you, do take cybersecurity seriously to some degree. 89% of organisations would recommend other organisations like them certifying, and then 91% said they'll recertify to Cyber Essentials next year. And we see that in our own systems, the hundreds and hundreds we do every year. It might be slightly higher than that. It's like an MOT. People just come back every year to recertify, which is great to see. It shows that the scheme, is working to some degree. So the reason people are probably here now, so the 2025 changes. So it's worth saying that the changes aren't dramatic this year like they were a few years ago when bringing cloud and multi-factor and all that into the scope. But there are some nuances, and especially in the way you interact with us as a certification body. However, the first one, is a good one, and it's really, tracking the way the world's going, the IT and the security industry going, is passwordless authentication. Now, passwordless, for those of you who don't know, passwords can obviously be cracked, they can be leaked onto the dark web, all of that good stuff. They're, not necessarily the strongest form of authentication that we can use. And there's many technologies out there, Microsoft, Duo, Okta, people like that have what we call passwordless authentication. And that's where, by its very nature, any passwordless solution would require two or more of the factors that you can see on the screen there. So it could be biometric authentication, it could be a token or a passkey, It could be a one-time code or a push notification to your phone. And I know some of the systems we use internally, we'll even use 3 of them. So, you know, this is moving the way that the world is moving, and longer term, you know, do we move away from passwords? I don't see it anytime soon, but the Cyber Essentials scheme is preparing itself for that. The next one then is one a bit more, you know, for the IT techies on the call. It's a change to patches and updates. So traditionally, the Cyber Essentials scheme has been bothered with if there's a patch or an update available within 14 days and it's critical or high, it should be applied. That has now changed to vulnerability fixes, and that just seems like a bit of a linguistic change. However, it actually has an underlying meaning there. So there were traditionally, and especially when we're doing Cyber Essentials Plus audits, certain things that we'd find that wouldn't fail the audit because it would be a configuration change. For example, unquoted service paths. You know, in the path there should be quotes around it, because during a pen test you can inject a malicious bit of code into there and escalate your privileges. That would need to be fixed now. It's a change within the registry. It's just putting quotes around something, but stuff like that would need to be changed. Gareth, is there anything else you can think of there that might impact this?
Yes, another traditional one was Win Verified Trust, which we saw in the past. That's a configuration change in the registry. Interestingly, that's just been downgraded from a high criticality to medium just before Christmas, but there are certain vulnerabilities out there that now apply because their configuration changes.
Yeah. Cool. Cheers, Gareth. Thank you. So the next one then is the next few are mainly around Cyber Essentials Plus. So this one, I think, would impact where you engage with us, and it might have quite a significant impact, especially if you've got a larger estate of IT equipment. And this is the scope verification. So IATME and the NCSC, because of the nature, you know, it's a public body. There's usually a little bit of bureaucracy, and we're left to interpret things as certification bodies until the guidance comes out. So that's kind of what's happened in this scenario. So the CE Plus assessor must verify the scope, you know, and ensure that it matches the scope in the self-assessment by technical means, and it just says technical means. So we have to interpret that in our own way. But our understanding requirement of this is inspecting your asset registers, or even inspecting your mobile device management or your other management platforms, such as Microsoft Intune. And that's the biggest one we interact with on a daily basis anyway with our clients. A lot of organizations are moving to Intune. So that Intune export, you know, we'd be reviewing that, making sure that everything, if you're telling us everything's on the latest version of Windows 11, we'd be checking that. So it's key here, and this ties back into the asset management bit, that organizations get a handle on this. Because traditionally you could say, yeah, we've got 50 Windows 11, 24H2, you know, and we'd go off that and pick a sample. Now we have to be checking that. So, you know, making sure that you, for example, the amount of Intune environments I go in with our clients, and there's machines that haven't been active for 2 years, they're still in there, making sure you're cleaning that out and keeping a good handle on asset management. It's not part of the scheme yet, but they're mentioning it a lot. So I can't say it's not going to be in the future, but it may be. So that's, for me, that's one of the big ones. You know, making sure that you know what you've got, you know, under management there, because it might impact the audit. You know, if we discover from an export on Intune that you have actually got end of life software, we'd have to call an end, you know, and fail the audit there and give you the opportunity to upgrade them. The next one is a subset verification. So this doesn't happen very often, but it does happen with some clients. So for example, if you choose to, if it's not the whole organization that's in scope, you may have, you know, legacy servers that can't be upgraded because they're running an old management system or sort of something like that, and you put them out of scope and you block internet access to them. You know, we can kind of help with that. You know, you put them in a separate firewall zone, or what we call a subset is a separate VLAN or subnet or something like that. If that is the case, we now have to verify that again by technical means. And in our understanding of this is inspecting your firewall or a layer 3 switch access control list, potentially performing an Nmap scan between VLANs or subnets, or looking at your firewall's own rules. And that's fine for us. We're ex-network security engineers, so we kind of understand that. But that's key. If you are putting things out of scope, we need to check that you have done that work, because traditionally we're just told in the self-assessment, yes, we've put this stuff in a separate firewall zone, in a DMZ, whatever it is. We now need to check that. So that's the key thing. We are going to be checking the sample size, the scope, potentially firewalls, and all of that good stuff. So there's a few more checks going on there. Some minor changes then that are coming in. Definition changes. There's been a few of these. So the term plugin has been replaced within extensions for software. And that includes, extensions, browser extensions, things you might include there. So that's been included there. Home working has been changed to home and remote working. That is, and I think the way they're going with that is traditionally, field sales agents, for example, may have kind of, you could have played fast and loose with the scope there. So that's just to tighten that up, so your field sales engineers, they've got a laptop, they can access Microsoft 365 or your CRM, they will need to come into scope there. As we mentioned earlier, any reference to patches and updates has been changed to vulnerability fixes. And that includes things like configuration changes and registry changes and all that good stuff. The word illustrative has been dropped from the name of the Cyber Essential test documentation. Again, that's just, that's mainly for us. That doesn't impact you as the applicant companies. And again, for us, we must verify the sample size has been calculated correctly and keep that evidence. And then we've done this anyway, traditionally, just in case we ever get queried on anything. But there now is a requirement for certification bodies to keep all the evidence from your audits for the lifetime of that certification, which is a year. So if we ever get audited by the NCSC or IASME, we will have that evidence there to show that we're doing we're doing things properly, and we are running the tests in the correct manner. So they're the changes really for this year. As we said, not much, but there are a few things, a few tips and recommendations that we want to make you aware of here. The first one is asset management. And I've stressed this quite a bit throughout the call so far this morning. Getting a handle on that, it's bringing your OSs up to date, making sure they're all on a similar one. This will streamline the audit for you, especially if you've got 800 endpoints, for example. That element of patch management and update management, and as you can see there, recommendation for vulnerability management will make your life easier when you come to that audit. And implementing a vulnerability management solution, Tenable, Qualys on there. There are others out there. And then off the back of that, an effective patch management solution. Something we recommend to just make your life easier when it comes to it. Something to be aware of then, October the 14th, Windows 10 support ends. So just something you need to be aware of, and getting things updated there. There you can buy extended support from Microsoft. However, if you can, look to start getting things updated now. Zero Trust architecture then. So this isn't a requirement yet in Cyber Essentials. However, the NCSC are banging the drum a lot about this. The last Joe Biden administration in America brought Zero Trust architecture in as guidance, especially for government organizations and critical national infrastructure, and it's being spoken about more and more and more. Zero Trust architecture then is, never trust, always verify is the underlying term there, but it addresses many of the Cyber Essentials controls, and that's things like multi-factor authentication, passwordless, as we spoke about, but posture checking. So checking devices, making sure their patches are up to date and all that before they can access your cloud applications and all of that good stuff. That's what a Zero Trust architecture is going after there, making sure not only that device is trusted and secure, but is the user who they say they are, using biometrics and things like that. That's the way that, you know, we're doing a lot of this at the minute, especially on the network security side of Protos. So there are recommendations for the year coming up, you know, Cyber Essentials. And I don't know what the future plans are for the scheme, but it wouldn't surprise me if in the next few years we might see asset management and zero trust becoming part of the Cyber Essentials standard. And then obviously Cyber Essentials, as I said near the start, it's a great framework for organizations beginning their journey to being more cyber resilient. But there are ways you can go beyond, and there are ways we help our customers go beyond there. So the first one is penetration testing. You know, so that's where you know, we're not just doing vulnerability scans on your systems. We're looking for vulnerabilities and then exploiting them in the system, seeing how far we can go. And that could be against your internal network, your external network, your websites and web infrastructure, or your cloud environment such as Azure or Microsoft 365 or whatever it is. You know, so that's going to go a bit beyond and look at that. And a lot of the times, you know, customers from us, they will buy a package of Cyber Essentials, Cyber Essentials Plus, but they might say, before I do that, I want a pen test just to go after the low-hanging fruit there. Once you've achieved Cyber Essentials, there's the option then to move towards IASME Cyber Assurance. And what this is it's a governance standard ran by IASME, who are the delivery partner for Cyber Essentials. And this goes beyond it. It's a framework, and it maps onto, you know, common cyber frameworks such as NIST and the NCSCCF and things like that. And this will include things such as risk assessments, policies, data protection. You know, GDPR is a big element of it. And, you know, and when we do that and when we engage on that basis, we usually have one of our consultants come in and even help you write the policies, do your risk assessments, do your asset management is a big part of that. So that's going beyond the scope, you know, and then there's two levels of that. There's the self-assessment, and then there's an audited version, and the audit's a bit more, you know, of a bit more in depth, a lot of writing, a lot of document checking and things like that. IASME Cyber Assurance is actually, you know, a governance framework similar to ISO 27001. So if you don't know, ISO 27001 really is the gold standard globally for information security governance. We've got ISO 27001, obviously running a 24/7 security network operations center. We'd be expected to have this. It is full on. It is expensive. It takes a long time. You know, you have to go through, in our case, 5 days of internal audits, 3-4 days of external audits, and then an annual surveillance audit, and keeping on top of that documentation. A lot of organizations go through ISO 27001, do so because they're required. However, if you're a cloud services provider or something like that, or you're a technology company such as us, you know, it's certainly worth having. And we've got our own internal ISO auditors, who are, they're not like auditors, they used to be IT managers and that, so you know, they understand you know, the real world, to put it politely there, and they've come from where many of our clients have come from on how to implement this stuff. And then going beyond from a technical perspective, then, you know, that 24/7 managed detection and response, and monitoring of your environments and things like that. We, you know, that's something we're doing, and we're seeing that become more and more commodity. You know, even for smaller organizations now, you know, 30, 40, all the way up to, you know, your thousands. And then, as I mentioned in the last slide, then that zero trust architecture, you know, if you need assistance with that, we can help with that. So that's the end of the update, really, then. Damien, I'll throw it back over to you.
Cheers, thank you very much, Darren. Yeah, and Gareth, thank you very much. Obviously, a lot of information there, and obviously great insights into the new standard and the updates. So we are running a little bit ahead of schedule, so that's great. So we'll be able to give you some time back, but it does mean we obviously do have a bit more time for questions. I'm just laughing at Hillary, your comment. No, I love Windows 10, which is quite funny. But we do have a question from Bruce. It's just, but would vulnerability fixes also cover firmware patching for devices, i.e. server ILO or iDRAC?
Possibly, yeah. So the vulnerability scan was run on devices within scope. That'll be the end user devices or servers. If it picks up a vulnerability on that device, critical or high, so CVS score 7 or above, that will be in scope and will need to be remediated. The network scanning is not a network scan; it's per device scan that we do.
And it's worth saying within the ethos of the scheme, you should be fixing that, and hence why I recommended the vulnerability management there. Something else, I think it's if we have another question on it. A few years ago, you only sampled servers which gave users desktop access, so a Citrix or a remote desktop server or something like that. Then it changed where we have to do a vulnerability scan on a sample of all servers. And what we were discovering is a lot of end of support SQL servers out there. And then when the organizations had to update them, it became a big pain for them, because obviously these are databases, they're critical to their applications internally and things like that. So those SQL databases, keeping an eye on them and making sure they're up to date as well is a key one there.
Okay, another one. If you've got supplier prerequisites where you have to have an annual pen test, does the vulnerability scan from Cyber Essentials generally cover those requirements?
No, it not usually, and this can be quite frustrating when you see these requirements, because quite often they're written by people who may not understand, what the difference is here, and a lot of time they don't give you a scope of what that is. But usually, penetration test is different. What we're doing at Cyber Essentials is a vulnerability scan. And that's on a sample of machines, and you will fix any vulnerabilities. As part of a pen test, a vulnerability, scan is done usually, but that's done against everything. And then we're looking for low-hanging fruit potentially, or more advanced vulnerabilities that our testers could then potentially exploit. It might be in a web application, and then pivot on your network, get onto domain controllers, whatever that is. So the scope of a pen test is often discussed between you and us, and it's much broader. It's a much more in-depth assessment of what's actually going on your network. And for example, an internal penetration test against an Active Directory domain will uncover potential routes to domain admin for an attacker that are there by default in an Active Directory domain if if it's not hardened or hasn't gone through a pen test previously. So slightly different, potentially get a bit more value, but a lot of organizations will want CE Plus and a pen test as well, a pen test report signed off by someone like us.
Okay, brilliant, thank you. Question from Ian. If people work from home, are there any requirements that they need to be met for home network? Oh, sorry, someone else put another question in, it's just moved up. If people work from home, are there any requirements that need to be met for home networks?
No. So the home network for your staff members are completely out of scope for Cyber Essentials.
Okay.
Just clear that from a few years ago, you used to have to put home routers in, and I think that might be what's behind the question there. No, they moved it to the you can apply the firewall controls on your machine there. However, if you give someone like a Meraki Z teleworker and it's owned by the organization, that comes into scope then. Yeah.
Perfect, thank you. Craig, don't worry. Yes, this session has been recorded and will be shared afterwards, so that's fine. Question from Tom. Is passwordless authentication required if MFA is enabled? Also, does Windows Hello count as passwordless authentication?
Do you want to take that one down?
Yeah, I can do. So if it's two or more of those factors, so as we said, biometrics and a certificate, or biometrics and a key, then that will count if that makes sense. So it has to be two or more of those factors there that I mentioned before. So a lot of the time, Windows Hello, for example, could be a YubiKey that you touch, and your Face ID or your fingerprint or something like that. That would suffice, or a digital certificate and your biometrics or a push notification. So it has to. Two or more of those factors is the key one there.
Brilliant. Thanks for that question, Tom. Question from Ollie. We don't use Intune. What other controls can we use to evidence our number of X or Y model devices? Will our CrowdStrike host list suffice, or our endpoints suffice for our endpoints and MDM for mobile devices?
Yeah, so I think we'll work with the client. So if you're using a remote management tool like Ninja or Datto, we can get the export from there. So yeah, we can work with you, look at what software you're using to manage your devices to evidence that.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Uh,
That could be checking Active Directory as well, couldn't it, Gareth? Or the EDR as well, yeah. So
Okay, brilliant. Thank you, Ollie. Another one from Bruce. There was talk about all devices, servers, desktops, networks, etc., having to be not EOL, but this was changed to only cover mobiles. I take it that's the same still and only has mobiles in scope.
Just read that again, sorry.
There was talk about all devices, servers, desktops, networks, having to be not end of life, but this was changed to only cover mobiles. I take it that's the same still and only has mobiles in scope. Bruce, I don't know if you might want to just reread that and just maybe just re-ask that. I'm not too sure. Do you guys understand that?
the hardware there, I think, Bruce, are you? I'll go with assume that's what you mean.
Yeah, he's put correct.
Yeah.
End of life,
Yeah.
i.e. Samsung still supporting security updates.
Yeah, so for mobiles, we have to check the hardware and then the Android version on it, to make sure that that's the case. We don't have to do that yet for laptops and things like that.
Yeah.
Brilliant. No problems, Bruce. Any more questions? I think we've kind of slowed down a little bit now.
There's a couple there you've missed.
Is there?
Minimum versions for iOS and Android. Android 12, I think, is supported till October. Gareth, tell me if I'm wrong.
Yes, good.
Yeah, and iOS is 16 gone now.
15, 16, 17, and 18 for iOS.
Yeah, okay, there's them. Steve, what extent would you check MFAs enabled in our SaaS platform? So when you do your Cyber Essentials basic self-assessment, you have to list all your cloud applications. What we then do is we take that list for your CE+, and then when we sample the users, we will say to that, so Microsoft 365 is a good one. Each user that we sample, so if it's 5 users, we will say, okay, log into Microsoft now in a private browser, make sure MFA is on, and then we'll pick a global administrator. So we have to check a standard user and an administrator if that's applicable. But then if they use other stuff such as Salesforce or whatever, we check them. If, for example, you use single sign-on, like we do, so we log in and you can see all of our applications. We just make sure that single sign-on's working right from that perspective.
These questions might be direct to you guys because I can't see any more in the group, so just double check. I don't know if you've got any.
What's the minimum? Yeah, the iOS one was straight to me. I can't see any other questions. Yeah, that's fine. Oh, Bruce has posted in there a link, if you can all see it in the chat, end of life.date. That's a really handy page that you might want to store. Thank you from Hillary. No, thank you, Hillary, for being a long-term client of ours. Yeah, so I think that's it from the questions.
Brilliant.
Oh, one more, sorry. We came across a Wi-Fi dashboard in a managed office we rent for assigning passwords. It has no MFA on it. So I'm assuming, is that a cloud? Is that a cloud dashboard? Are we talking like the Meraki dashboard or something like that there? It depends if it's in scope. So if that system is in scope for a managed office, it might not come into scope then. It was a homemade platform they made. Dan, we'd have to understand that a lot more, I'm afraid. There's a lot of, if it's your cloud dashboard and it's in the scope of yours, then that would be the case. I think if it's off the shelf, then it would have to have MFA on it. Sorry, I can't give you a firm answer. There's a lot of nuances in that answer. It depends if it's in the scope or not. Just go through a few more. Yinka, is passwordless compulsory? No, it's not compulsory. You can still use a password and MFA. For example, there's password controls in there. What PM would you recommend? Is that VM, Jack? I'm sorry, is that vulnerability? What is your go-to vulnerability scanner? Patch Manager. Patch Manager, pick your poison, really. We've just started using Action 1 internally, and our SOC team really like it. I was with a client yesterday who use, oh God, I can't remember what they use, but they really, Endpoint Central, I think. So they recommend that. But Action 1 is actually free. Now, we're not a partner. This isn't a sales pitch, but that's actually free for up to 100 endpoints. So if you're a smaller business, you get the full package for free. What's your go-to vulnerability scanner? We use Tenable, and we've got Nessus as well. Tenable.io, and that's recommended for the scheme. So there's a list that are recommended for the scheme. However, when we do our SOC services, we can also include a vulnerability scanner inside CrowdStrike now, which is our EDR, but I know other EDRs such as Sentinel-1 and things like that will also have a vulnerability management system in there as well. I don't think I've missed anything else.
Just going
Dan,
back to the patch management and vulnerability scanning, I think Tenable are rolling in patch management into that platform soon. That's not going to be in one.
Yeah, a lot of RMM tools such as things like Atera and Datto and that will do patch management as well. Yeah, so I'm not happy with that answer I gave you, Dan, but I don't know if you want to drop me an email. There's a lot of moving parts that I can answer there, and it depends on the scope, who owns the application and things like that. If you did want a bit of a clearer answer, just email us in, and me and Gareth will have a look at it and come back to you there. Great webinar, thanks. Yeah, that's it, I think. David,
brilliant. Yeah, no. So as Darren mentioned, that brings us to the end. So obviously, a huge thank you to Darren, Gareth, for the content. Obviously, thank you, you guys. It's really great when we get such an engaging audience as well, asking loads of questions. So really appreciate that. So just before you go, a couple of final points. Again, recording will be shared of this. It will be emailed to you, but it'll also be published onto our website as well. Whereas if you've got any additional questions, you can contact me, Darren, fill in a contact form on the website and get in touch to us, and we can do that. Darren's kindly shared there our upcoming webinars, which again will be listed on the website and we'll get out to you. First one, demystifying the SOC. And everything that entails with that. I think there's a lot of nuances in the industry and a lot of abbreviations. So we'll be kind of covering that off. Keep your children safe in education. We've got a great partnership there that we've just developed, and that is all around safeguarding reporting. Really brilliant thing about that, it's not just in education. This tool is transferable and probably has application in other sectors as well if safeguarding is something high on your priority. And then one we're all really excited for, especially Darren, he's been wanting to do this for a while. We're doing an event at the Hackley Nuclear Bunker. So this is going to be a cyber event. So it's going to be like a lunch and learn, probably run from 10 till 2:30, 3. We're going to have a number of speakers there, all focused around cybersecurity. And then at the end of the day, we do get a little tour around the bunker as well. So if you're keen to attend that, we can get an invite out. Very limited numbers on that, so we'll keep you posted. So that draws me to the end. Thank you very much. Keep in touch, follow us on LinkedIn, and we'll get all this information out. But thank you very much, and have a great rest of the week, everybody. Cheers.
Thank you, everybody.
Cheers. Thank you.
Bye-bye.